There is nothing quite like a table full of fully done, completed terrain. Unless you're in a local gaming shop or a games workshop or something, you're not likely to find one of these, and a lot of people don't go to the time and effort it takes to really make this at a home setup. Some people will work really hard and be looking around for quite a while, and much like Bianca Sensori's Grammys outfit, not see it whatsoever. But anyway, if you're buying from Games Workshop, you might find kits out of stock, really, really high prices, very high prices. And did I mention the really, 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 really high prices? Maybe you look at MDF kits, and those are a lot more reasonable, but still, bit of work, bit of time, generic. I don't know. Maybe you don't even have the budget for any of this stuff. So I'm going to show you guys how to make some really simple terrain in the next few videos out of nothing but household items. Let's start. So this first piece, we're going to make some pipe terrain. This was inspired by Enemy at the Gates. I noticed there's a lot of pipes and tubes all throughout the city of Stalingrad in World War II. Jude Law and Ed Harris get to roll around in them and shoot themselves up. It's good fun. Anyway, I'm just taking one of my paper towel tubes here, laying it out on my cutting mat and measuring roughly half and going right down the middle. Using a really sturdy razor knife like this one, by the way, works well on rigid cardboard. Don't use too much pressure and you'll get a good cut. Now we want to start roughing these up. We want to make these look like they've been shot, blown up, ripped off things. Generally just had a really, really bad time. Sort of like the View viewership. Holes in the middle make for an added little touch. If you put these on both ends, you get something that a model could conceivably shoot through, depending on, how much of a rules lawyer you are, or if you have to get out the frickin' laser pointer. I'll stop while I'm ahead. You can also take out larger sections. I'm basically going for almost a third of this side here because I'm going to stand this up, and conceivably, like I said, you could put models in there and they could actually stand up, shoot through holes. This basically is going to work not unlike a wrecked bunker. It's just a bit of cover, something to hide behind, or even possibly in if you're big enough. A really simple trick for concrete blocks or something wrecked within a city is leftover styrofoam. Just break chunks off, you'll get very concrete-esque blocks. It's really, really just a no-brainer when it comes to urban terrain. So if you have styrofoam packing, save some, it'll come in handy quite often. As I go, I'm starting to lay out how this is going to go, what pieces are going to go where, and moving things off to the side if I'm not going to use them. Next, we're going to figure out a base and make sure that the pieces are going to fit on it. Now, these by themselves, if I just glued these tubes together, they probably wouldn't be A, super durable, B, they wouldn't sit flush or sit well. If I put a model in them or on them, it might conceivably break apart. So we're going to do a basing trick I saw on MS Paint's channel. Dave is a really great hobbyist. He's got a lot of different tips and tricks, and he does a whole video on cardboard pizza box ruins. And one thing he did that I've never actually seen before, though it's apparently fairly common for Games Workshop, is take two pieces of cardboard, one slightly bigger than the other to give a little bit of, depth of the footprint. And all he's going to do is glue those together or tape those together and use masking tape on the edges. If you're a little confused, just watch, take notes. You'll see what I'm getting at here very shortly. Just make sure your top piece is a little bit smaller in the footprint than the bottom piece. And then go ahead and glue those pieces together, keeping the one more to the center of the other. Simple, right? Here's the fun part. Get out your handy dandy masking tape. It can be blue, it can be orange, whatever you want. I do like the orange heavy duty stuff. It's a little tougher. All you're going to do is, and this doesn't have to be square, by the way. You could do round, you can do triangular, you can do rectangle, doesn't really matter. All you're going to do is get the tape going across both pieces so you have a flat surface, and figuring more with the one you want to have up, what's going to be actually visible. Make sure that's flat, overlapping, and covered. I just ripped a bunch of strips. You can't really see that below, but I'm just going and overlapping these and putting it on. And all this does is create a little bit of a bevel to the edge, a little bit of depth. If you're using foam board, you can just cut this in, but if you're using cardboard to be cheaper, seeing as that's, more readily available, this is a great way to get a bevel on the edge and add a little bit of durability to the piece, and oddly enough, keep it from warping. Stay tuned. Nice. And yeah, I know, tape is not exactly trash terrain, but who cares? It's also worth taking a minute to make sure that the underside is flat, seeing as this is going to be the part that sits on your table. So tape down or cut any stray pieces of tape that are just ridging, warping, whatever. Just make it as neat as you can. Doesn't have to be perfect. At this point, we are ready to actually put the pieces onto the base. So you're going to start laying these out where you want them and just glue them down. Doesn't have to be neat, doesn't have to be tidy. Just get it so that they're going to stick to the base, not go anywhere, and that'll be that. See, if I try this without a base, that would just roll around or be at some weird angle. It might break. Just no bueno. Put a base on it if you don't think it's going to stand. Go ahead and hot glue down any foam you use as well. Do not use super glue. It's just going to melt through that as a tip. Looking pretty good. I think I'm going to add a few more pieces of detail though. Another little tip from MS Paints, using stir sticks or coffee sticks to make wooden planking, which is pretty friggin' useless in the 41st millennium or whatever your sci-fi setting of choice. But again, it adds character. I'm also going to put some toothpicks into the styrofoam to make this look like rebar sticking out of broken concrete. It's a little addition that just goes a long way in telling the story and giving this depth, giving this meaning. It's not just a hunk of trash on a piece of cardboard. Time for basing. Get out your Elmer's glue. I prefer to use some Carpenter's wood glue. This is Titebond. You can find this at a hardware shop. It's a little tackier than Elmer's, but basically the same thing. I'm just going to spread this all over the base, all over the beveled part, all over the tape. Doesn't really matter. Anywhere that you want to put down sand or gravel or tufts or anything like that is going to get a heavy coating here. And start with your larger stuff. This is just aquarium gravel. You can pick up a huge bag of this that will last you ages for, I don't know, $5, $10, depending. I recommend to get the stuff without paint on it, just plain gravel. Works really, really well, and we'll pick up detail and paint later. I split this up and just did a section at a time, so I'm not necessarily having glue sitting there drying while I'm trying to get pieces done on each part of the base. So do a little at a time depending on how big the base size is. It's just a generally good practice. As soon as all your gravel is done or your bigger aggregate, get something like paper you can put down, newspaper, loose leaf, whatever, and dump sand on the rest of the base. Better to use more than less. Shake this around so it covers everything you put glue onto, and then shake off the excess onto the paper. If you're indoors or anything, on carpet, whatever, be careful with this. Make sure you have plenty of newspaper or whatnot so you can clean up later and reuse it all back into the bottle. At this point, the build is done. This is exactly everything that's going to be on this. We're not adding any other parts, pieces. This is everything except paint, which comes next. So the first thing I'm going to do is use straight Mod Podge. This is a Plaid product. Plaid makes a lot of craft paints and different products, and they're also friends of the channel, which is nice. Anyway, Mod Podge is a sealer. If you're going to spray paint styrofoam, it basically will melt from the propellant in the can. So one thing you can do is use a sealer like Mod Podge and cover that up. I'm also going to put this over all the cardboard of the tube. Now, some of these are stronger than others, and these are pretty rigid, but this is going to give it a little added durability so that the piece of terrain will hold up over time. It just makes it a little harder, stiffer, protects it, you name it. Get the piece looking like a Krispy Kreme donut freshly glazed, and let her dry. So, after drying, I spray painted this black because I don't feel like brushing on Mod Podge in black on the entire piece, and I start with a little bit of ash gray. Now we're going to overbrush this. That means I'm wiping most but not all the paint off my brush, and I'm just going over the base at this point. I just want that to all be gray or ashy or dirty. Just very rough painting technique. You can't really go wrong. From there, I whip out the Admiral Blue. This is a medium sort of Prussian blue. I don't really want to do the pipes all metal, so I'm just going to put that over all the pipes. So there's a good solid coat on the outside of that. Don't worry about this looking smudgy. Doesn't really matter. We're going to do so much to this with really no effort. It's just going to look fine. Then we're going to get out a medium blue. This is a lot lighter. I'm not really going to use this on the pipes. I'm using this on that little bit of concrete, and I'll get all the different sides of it. Again, don't worry if it looks runny or splotchy. We're gonna mess that up even further. I do, however, put this on those pieces of aquarium gravel. It just kind of ties the piece together, and it looks like fragments of the bigger one. Then we're going to whip out a burnt umber. We're going to use this on the wooden planking. Again, just slap it on, don't be tidy. And the next thing is we're going to put this all along the inside near the edges and the outside edges and anywhere there's a hole in the pipes. This is a really easy way to make a burnt out effect. You might think this looks like rust right now, but when you see what we do with this, it'll make sense. But just get all the edges, all the holes, all the cut spots, and just do as much brown as you please. Then we're going to get out a metal. I'm using, I think it's nickel, and I'm just going to go over the rebar in the concrete. And I'm going to go really light on this. You don't want to paint straight on this, but get all the edges and everything that you covered up brown. Leave some of the brown showing through, but cover the fine edges in metal. Now we're going to take some acrylic ink. This is just black ink. And I'm not using any kind of binder or anything as a medium here. This is just ink and water. Honestly, it's probably about a 50-50 mix. I'm not really going a lot of water. I want this to be smudgy, dirty. And we're going to put this in a couple different spots. I'm using a sponge, by the way. It just seems to work better than a regular brush. And I'm just going to start dabbing this over the parts where we have the burnt hole. So take a look at the effect here. You've got brown, you've got metal on the edges, and we're going to take the whole thing and make it look like this has been on fire or has exploded out, something. It just adds a ton of depth. And go as heavy as you please. You can even put this on the base. I don't recommend the whole thing, just spots. And I'm putting this on the concrete and the planking as well. So the whole thing, almost the whole thing, except maybe a few spots of pipe, are getting this ink wash. And you can make this as dark or go over it as many times as you want. It's really up to you and the look you want to get. And there you have it. That's our finished piece. Some of this ink is literally still drying as I rotate this around, but you can see there what a striking burned effect we have on the pipes, and this really stands out on the table, as you might guess. So, if this was helpful, please let me know if there's a specific piece you want to see next. Put that in the comments. Otherwise, give the video a like, and I'll see you on the next one. Stay savage, people.